Thank you for so much for joining me, Bridget. This is something I haven't done before, which is to reconnect with a client on video and record it for other people to see. And so much has happened in the past year since you were in the group program.
Yeah.
Um, so let's catch up. Let's talk about your journey because I think that this is going to be a really useful conversation for a lot of authors who are embarking on their journey with their first book,
hmm
and especially just kind of the process you went through. So,
Yeah, well, there's definitely stuff to navigate. And, I think that was part of going into it, part of the things I wanted to prepare for was, I write about rivers. So I'm going to use some river metaphors. Like you have to scout the rapid and pick a line and execute the line and, know how to navigate certain points. And if you don't know how to navigate them, it's terrifying, because you can flip and swim and game over, and I've heard so many times, like you get one shot, like going out with your dream list of agents and you get one shot with them. You can't go back. And I made that mistake once with my dream agent and I didn't want to make that mistake again, so I'm happy that I was prepared. This class, the author brand strategy class, and other work that I did to prepare. I did a lot of work to prepare to go to market because I knew
yeah.
it's showtime, and you can't go out with like a half-assed product. And at this point, it's a product. So I wanted it to be as polished and as ready to go to market as possible. And so because of that preparation on the front end, I did have a great experience. And I did ask, I was able to ask for help, ask people who knew and had done that part of the journey. So I'm not just kind of going in blind,
Yes, totally. Well, tell us first, before you tell us where you're at now, tell us about your book.
Well, I wrote a memoir called The River's Daughter. This is fun because I get to use my elevator speech that I wrote.
Yeah.
My book is called The River's Daughter, and it's a coming of age adventure memoir. It's kind of an educated meets wild. That's how it was pitched. And it chronicles, my developing a relationship with the river that I grew up next to escape a troubled childhood, becoming a river guide, and then using that relationship with rivers to come back to my family. The river led me away from my family, but also brought me back to my family to heal and reconnect and help us to overcome a multi-generational cycle of poverty and abuse. So it's a hopeful book, and there's a lot of adversity in it as well.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that most drew me to that story when you were first telling me about it last year was just this idea of nature bringing you wholeness and also helping you heal what was happening or the results of what were happening and even relationships in your life. And you're one of the foremost river guides in the world, right?
Well,
Not just any old river guide.
I have as my title, I'm a river explorer, and that's not a euphemism. I did a lot of river trips, kind of, in the 80s, late 80s and 90s, when there were not a lot of women doing it. I was always one of the only women, if not the only woman, on any expedition crew I was on. And that experience led me to, kind of a couple years before Me Too really exploded onto the scene. I did a lot of writing and work around misogyny and sexual harassment in the outdoor industry, specifically the river industry, and kind of broke that open within my own industry a couple of years before it came out in Hollywood, and did articles, built a platform around that. But I also didn't want that to be my platform. I didn't want to be the sexual harassment poster girl, especially when I had a lot of other things to write about, adventure and culture and connection and sisterhood and multi-generational trauma and healing from that. So that was another part of why I wanted to do the branding, because I didn't want that part of my brand to overshadow the other parts of my brand. And it was starting to happen just because people glommed onto that. And then I became kind of like the go-to person. I was on all these panels and, and I was like, wow, I really just don't want that to be all that I contribute, in this space. So doing the work to emphasize the other parts too, because they are connected, was great. And it's working really well to have that balance now.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's such a good point too. We often, when we think about a personal brand or an author brand, I think the fear that a lot of authors have is that they're going to be pigeonholed as just one thing, and especially something that they don't really want to be seen as, and like kind of that one note thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where where my philosophy is a little bit different, where it's like I want you to help you create that whole person brand that's all the facets that you want to put out in the world, so that you're not stuck.
Yeah. And not just, and having language around that too. So when you're in these panels, you can, it's great to have that exposure and to take advantage of those relationships, to get your other, works out there, and to have language to talk about that. That was the hardest, what's your book about? When I got to, author brand strategy, I'd be like, well, it's this book and it's about rafting. I kind of had an idea, but I didn't have just a boom answer. And now I do. And in fact, I went to Reese Witherspoon recently did this Shine Away event in Los Angeles, where it was like all these authors.
Yeah.
Strayed was there, Reese was there, Jennifer Garner, like all these people. And they were talking, it was a lot about brand. It was a lot about women empowerment. And I ran into a woman there just chatting at one of the luncheon things. And she had worked with my publisher, and she was like, oh, well, what's your book about? And I told her, and she was like, that is a great elevator's pitch. Oh my gosh. Like she was just, and I'm like, thank you, and it was, but I didn't have to, that used to be a question that would just like send a flood of fear through me. Like, oh no, I have to say, come up with this thing and I'm not quite ready and I'm like reaching for it. But now it's just like right there on the tongue. It's great.
Oh, I love to hear that. That's exactly the goal, right? Like we've talked about this many times throughout the program, where when you feel really solid about what you're bringing to the world and you understand your own value and you have the words to put around it, as you said, it's so freeing. And it's actually, there is a sense of like every time you say those words, every time you share it, there's more and more power kind of growing.
Yeah.
And confidence.
And now I can veer away from the one line a little bit, because, I know what I'm saying. I know what the gist of it is, and I can kind of free flow it a little bit more. But it was nice to have that script in the beginning. And that, elevator pitch is what's on my landing page. Like that pitch is the beginning of, in the class, we worked on our brand positioning statement. That's on my website, and then that trickled into my query letter. That was and we went over my query letter in one of my one-on-one sessions, which was awesome. So I felt really confident about my query letter going out. And so I signed up for this class, the first cohort. I think it began in November of 2022. Yeah. And it was 6 months, and it ended in May of 2023. I sent my query out to, the first round of agents. I made like a little list. I went on Publishers Marketplace, and I'd been researching people who represented things like mine. And I made a list, and I sent out my query to that list, like the end of May. I want to say like the 25th of May, I think it was. It was the new moon, whatever. Take advantage of everything, right? So I'm like, I'm going to send this out on the new moon, and I think it was a solar or an eclipse even. So I sent it out, and I had immediately responses. However, this is important to note for people doing this process. My list was not, it was like half, agents I didn't know, that I was just sending it out, like slush pile. And then it was half people who I knew somebody that they worked with or at the agency, and it was a personal connection. And I was able to say like, so-and-so recommended that I contact you regarding my memoir, The River's Daughter. Boom, query letter, right? They wanted to get in touch with me, but I'd been out of town for, a week. So they thought that I'd gone with someone else and blown them off. And the letters they sent were amazing. And then I also, through another work contact, I had a friend who is a writer, an adventurer, who also has an agent in New York. So I asked him, and meanwhile he had contacted her and she was pursuing me, and he told another agent and she was pursuing me. And one of them was, while I was in Yosemite, like messaging me through my website that I built, during the author brand strategy course we did. So the website worked, because she was like, hi. And these were like big name agencies, like top, level. And I was just like, what? I have all these people like pursuing me.
Yeah. Obviously the experience you had was like the ideal scenario, right? That everybody wants. But that's not to say that like, you didn't do the work. And I think that when people are in that position where they're like, okay, it's been 6 months, there's nothing wrong with following up with an agent. The worst thing they're going to say is no, but it's better than being in limbo. I always think it's part of the journey is showing them how serious you are about this book and this brand that you're building, And
right. There's two things that are important here. There's getting the door opened to get into the party, right? You're not on the list. You're not on the guest list. You need somebody right. to get you on the guest list, and the velvet rope comes up and, oh, you've got entry into the party. So that's like a huge part of it. But you've got to be ready. Like when they lift up that rope, you've got to have, you got the dress on, like you're ready to go. Like you're not, oh, okay, great. Let me just go get dressed real quick and get myself together, and then I'll come back and then open the rope. No, like it's go time. So you've got to show up ready to go and get, be able to get your foot in the door. And then once you're in the party, you're in the party, and you've got your materials, and it's a good marriage there. But those two things are super important. Be prepared.
Yeah.
And get an intro.
Yes, so true. Okay, so you mentioned your website, and if I remember correctly, when we first talked, before you even joined the program, that was your primary concern, right? Was getting a website up because you knew you were going to start pitching. So I bring that up because that is one of the most common places I see clients come, because they're like, okay, I know I need a website up. But then what happens from there when you're looking at the whole, well, I'll just let you answer that question.
Yeah, so I had a seventh draft of my book. I worked on my book for 22 years. I'd done the work on the book, right? I'd done workshops. I'd been in 3 or 4 writers groups.
And that's key. That's huge. Like,
yeah, I had a good product.
That's the biggest
and I knew
part.
I had a good product. Yeah. So I knew I had a good product, and I knew I needed to honor that product by doing the work to get it ready, like Cinderella getting ready to go to the ball. Like I didn't want her going in rags. So we needed to, the website is the carriage. We need to have everything look professional and look good. So I'm a creative. I am not a web IT person. And I had paid a web IT person for a long time to do my website, and I still didn't like it. And I didn't like the process either of like, can you click a link to this article I wrote? And then it just, and I was paying money and it wasn't happening. And I just really wanted to know how to do it myself. And that was one of the things that appealed to me, was like, learn how to do your own website, because I don't want to pay somebody $5,000 to do my website. And I was like, wow, this is a great value. You get all this stuff for branding, and you learn how to do your own website too. And it's less than having to pay someone to do just my website. So that seems like a great deal. So that was my main thing. And my website, it was so cumbersome and outdated. I first had it made, I think 2001. And because I've been working on my book 22 years, like here we are too. So I was like, yeah, we need an update. And I have no clue how to do that. So that was great. And all the website stuff was so clear, the worksheets that you gave. I was just going back through it, making the little list of all the things you need. And that came after, and that was my main thing. So I wanted to just go right to the website. And you were like, no, let's go through, I think it's really important. Like everything builds on itself, which once you get to the website, you see how it does. Like I had done all this work on my brand and some of the things that I wanted to include, not just be able to sell my books there, but also do these women empowerment river workshops as part of my brand. I just had this feeling that I wanted to do that. And I thought it was important. I thought it was a good way to give back. It was a good way to connect with people. And, you know, in doing all of the worksheets, I have it all in my binder here, doing all of these worksheets, which I refer to. So that's nice. I have it on my desk. I have this like reference to, you know, and you forget because there's so much stuff. You go over so much material. You forget some things sometimes. But as I was going through the website planning, you know, there's these lists, like you need to have the elevator pitch, the headshot, the email opt-in, the book cover descriptions, etc. So you have, it's like all these puzzle pieces that you build with just through the worksheets, like, you know, just filling these worksheets out. And then it's like A plus B equals C. And then boom, you have, oh, here's the elevator pitch. And then I would just put it into this completed file of like assets that I have now. And that I still am using. You know, somebody asks me like, send over your bio. Boom, here it is. Send over your, you know, whatever. Like there's different things that, and I have a really important document I want to talk about where this all came in. Everything played in super well. But back to the women's empowerment workshops, I just had this idea that, you know, my brand is about resilience. It's about overcoming adversity. It's about navigating life's obstacles, you know, getting through difficult times and healing through rivers. So it's about resilience and healing through rivers. And so having these workshops where we do writing, and I'm also working with a friend of mine who does Ayurveda. So we've just launched our first, and she's a river guide also. We love working together. So we just launched a collaborative where we go rafting, and she does Ayurveda and I do writing, and it's on the Salmon River in Idaho.
I'm so excited about that. I'm hoping I can make that trip.
Yeah, it's super great because she's bringing clients, I'm bringing clients, so we have more reach too, especially for the first one because it's a little daunting, the first one. But we just did a couple posts that are very, you know, all the language that we built in the class using that language. Did a couple posts. We've already sold out half the trip. You know, we have a bunch of people still wanting to get in. But what is awesome, so we did just a little post on Instagram and Facebook, and then we directed them to go to our websites to sign up. So then people go to my website and there's a little, you know, journeys and events page, landing page. See, I'm so like, I don't even know about websites, but I built a website, you know, at this class, and I was able to pull this off and it looks really good and it functions well. And I understand it, you know, it's something I can do myself. So they go to this landing page. It has a little blurb, you know, to entice. And then it's like, want to learn more? Click here. So they click. Then I get an email saying that they want more information on this. And I have their email. And what's awesome, though, I'm seeing and then we have this Excel sheet and we're putting all of the emails and all the potential clients onto this sheet. So all of these people that are asking for, you know, information, they are my ideal reader. Every single one of them. They want to go rafting. They want to write. They're into nature and healing because all of the branding is about that. So it's attracting those people. So now she and I were just talking about this yesterday. Like, we have this incredible list of people that they're all going to buy my book. They're all going to you talk about having a fandom. I just did a class recently and they were talking like how to build your fandom, you know, which is your ideal reader. Like these people are all, you know, in the fandom, super fans that are going to go out and be like, oh, I did this trip with her. She's great, you know, hopefully. And she, you know, like she wrote this book and it's incredible and you should buy it, and be spreading the word also. So it's like all still rippling out. And that list and the website, it's all great how it all dovetails together, you know. And the place where I really first started seeing where this was so easy was when I signed with my agent and she's like, great. So before we go, we're going to pitch editors. And we took so I'd signed with her in July. So I sent it out in May. I was signed by July.
Amazing.
And then she's like, I don't think that we should go out with it now because everybody's gone. August, people are in the Hamptons or wherever they go. So let's go out right after Labor Day. We'll be the first thing on the desk. So we worked on, she sent me this author questionnaire from my agency that you're supposed to fill out. And here are the things on the author questionnaire. I printed it out because it's really funny. So it's like, okay, who are you? List your socials. Great, have those. List your, basically your bio, have that. The book, describe your book in one sentence. Boom, cut and paste, put that in from the class, right? I have the assets, I have the puzzle pieces, put in there. Why did you write this book? What interested you in the material? Okay, I've got that too. Boom, put it in there. Like we've done all these worksheets. I've got this giant binder of worksheets that answer for every question on here. I have a piece, a chunk that I can just put in there. Titles. Give us 3 comp titles. Have those. I did a whole worksheet on that. I've got multiple. I had a problem just narrowing it down to 3 titles.
I love it. I love it.
Interviews or media appearances you've done. Great links to that. Magazines, newspapers, podcasts that will be interested. So I've got a list of all these podcasts that I think will want me to on there. So now going forward, I have a list of like, who do I contact next, to get on podcasts? Any colleges, universities that might be interested, conventions or professional meetings where your book can be displayed, organizations that might invite you. I mean, these are all things that we've kind of gone over, are included in these lists of, who authors, writers who might be willing to provide a blurb. I've got a bunch of those. Potential reviewers, columnists, media contacts you have. I've got a bunch of those. And potential book awards, that was something that we hadn't done, but that is good to look at. As I think what also appealed to my publisher going into this is that I didn't have this like one lane of memoir. I also brought this whole other outdoor world and outdoor book awards and outdoor conventions. I mean, it's endless. Outdoor stores that can be, I'm like listing like every mountain town outdoor store in the US and beyond. You can go around and just like, hey, will you sell my book here? Like that right there. We're not just looking at bookstores anymore. We're looking at so many points of sale.
Absolutely.
So then my agent took this off, and I even like uploaded my headshot, because I had all that already assembled through this class. I have all my assets. And I got this back to her in like a week. She's like, what? You're done with it? I'm like, yeah. She's like, geez, okay. So then she wrote her pitch to editors, and then she sent it back to me, and it was all language, that I had originated, and she was just kind of using and fluffing up. And then that to me, that stuck with me when you said, when you want to create your brand, you want to create it and you want to control it and you want to control the narrative of it, because it's going to get picked up. They're going to take things out of all of your materials, and just, people are overworked, and they'd be like, what do I write about this book? I don't know. What does she have? Okay, great. And then they just plug it in and it's out in the world, and you can't like call it back, once it's out. So if you control it from the front end, the way it flows out and trickles out, that's going to be controlled throughout the entire experience. You're going to have created it, originated the language, and then that's what's going to go out and disseminate, right? And that happened for me in a couple of important ways where, like, one, my agent used all of my information from my author questionnaire to make her pitch to send out to editors and publishers. So that's what they read. And so then my publisher, buys my book. Great. They bought world English rights. So they have an agent separate from mine, a different agent, an international rights agent that they work with to sell UK rights and Commonwealth rights. Here it is. And I'm just excited. And I'm like, what? I just decide to Google the title of my book. And then this comes up and I'm like, what is this? Who are these people? Who is Susanna Leah? That's not my agent. And then I'm reading it and it's like, I'm like, that sounds great. Oh gosh, I wrote most of that. That's amazing. So at least it's being represented the way I wanted to. But who is this person? And then when I asked my agent, she's like, oh, that's Spiegel and Grau's agent to sell the UK rights. And she's going to Frankfurt, and then that's what she's using to go sell it, in Frankfurt. I don't know her, but she has all my great, branding and words and written about it. So that's amazing. So that's like a super important realization that the end use of how this stuff is going to get used. If you control it on the front end, that's all lifted straight from my my author questionnaire that was sent to my publisher that was then
Yeah.
forwarded to her.
Yeah, and that's how it works. I mean, a lot of writers don't realize that that pitch from your query letter or the thing you fill out in your author questionnaire, the description of the book, that's what most publishers are going to use, definitely at least for the
To
beginning
build
of
on, yeah.
exactly.
It may get, finessed as we get deeper into the work now, but it's foundational. They build on that.
Yeah.
And it does two things. It makes it easier for them. So like I have this thing taped up, like deliver the goods and be easy to work with. Those are my two like professional mantras. That makes it easy. I'm easy to work with if it's like already written for them and it's done. And I'm delivering the goods. They're there. So I can, and that frees me up too to work on having, like I've already just started my second book. I have free time now because this is just out in the world doing its thing. And I don't have to, they're not writing me like, hey, can you send us a blurb? And I'm like freaking out that I don't have anything and trying to create it. And no, it's done like months ago. It's done. So now I have time for my second book, which is great.
I love that. Yeah, I think, there's so much when you're putting together your brand, there's so much work in the beginning, but I always tell people you do all this work in the beginning so that it's so much easier moving forward and everything is kind of a no-brainer. The decisions you need to make, you know where you stand on, and you're able to articulate why because you've already thought it through. You've already put it together. I'm so glad, like everything you're saying is just music to my ears. It makes me so happy that this is the experience that you're having and that you get to have the book that you want out in the world. Because I think that's the other thing a lot of folks don't realize is that, especially with a memoir, when it's very personal like that, the editorial process and the publishing process isn't just, it's not like, here's my manuscript and it gets printed and put out in the world. There's so much that happens in between, and being able to be really grounded in what you want this to be and how you want to be perceived is such a big part of being able to protect the work and put out what you want and not just what the publisher wants, because it's not as if they have ill intentions, or even the agent, like they have good intentions, but like you said, they didn't work on this book for 22 years. They don't know it like you.
And the other thing is that because I was so thoughtful and intentional about everything that I wrote, and like creating the brand and creating the package, that intention is matched, right? I attracted like a fantastic agent who's in it for the authenticity in the package, and I attracted a fantastic publisher that is like my dream publisher. They're so tastemakers, attention to detail, is so quality focused, and they recognize that in the packaging, and the work. But I don't have to settle. I get like my pick. I had that went. It was a preempt because I had several publishers interested, and so I got to choose from like 3 different publishers which one I wanted to go with, because they were all pursuing it, and I chose the one that matched, my authenticity and intention the best. So I feel now that I have such an amazing team around me. It gives me such freedom. And I'm like, I used to have a lot of fear that like, I'm this little trailer park girl from Wyoming. Like I can't go like play with the New York people. I don't know what I'm doing, but I have this team around me that does. And they're kind, they're loving, they're generous, they're helpful, they're supportive. So I feel like the work and the intention and the love that I poured into it on the front end attracted that back. And it's all foundational. It all is building on,
Yeah.
all of this work. And I'm just so grateful. Like I was scrolling along one day and I came across, and, so you'd posted something about this class, they were doing this hybrid class, and it was like everything in me was like, yes, like just this zing of like, yes. And I had to, pitch my husband, like, look this is money well spent. This is foundational. This is my career. Like we need to launch and we have to have it, be of a certain caliber. And I know that this class is going to get it to there. And he was like, all right, and now he, it's all happening. It's all, and I'm just so glad I listened to that intuition, that you put out the intention. I responded to it, and it's like all those things have just been building, and here we are. And it's the freedom, and it's wonderful, like to have your dream come true and to have the freedom and to feel like it's going in a direction I'm happy with. And I'm not like, oh no, they're trying to package me to be like the sexual harassment girl or whatever. I'm not being like shoved into something that I don't want to do.
Yes. Oh, I love to hear that. And I'm so glad you followed your intuition too. I mean, I I think that that's such an important part of all of this. I look at the people who are in our cohort, the people who always join, it's not just I talk to every person and make sure that these are people that we want to be around each other, that following your intuition, following that alignment, I think is important in our careers and our lives. I mean, it's woo woo, but I don't care. Like that's part of
Okay.
that's
Hey, it
that's
works.
part of
I'm
it.
telling you,
It works.
I have this vision board over here. I'd say things to my agent like, well, I'm ready to start editing with Cindy. So I'm going to put up a picture of us on my wall. She's like, do it. Because when you put stuff on that wall, it happens. That's my little special area where I have my mantra. One is I am represented by a committed, savvy agent who is a solid business partner, selling my work to top editors and publishers. That was on there. And that's what I got. It works.
It does.
I did all
It,
this
it,
stuff like with intention, with, manifesting, visualizing it, doing the work, because that is a part of it. I mean, obviously you can
yes,
manifest your whatever till the cows come home, but if you don't have the work done in the product, but that's the alignment too, like
yes,
I have a top product to sell to top editors, and believing in your work and believing in yourself and believing in the work you're doing, and with empowerment and helping women and authors, is that was an alignment for us. So it's important to not pretend to be something you're not.
yes. I think that the weird, like, I guess, undercurrent of personal branding is that it's a lot about self-knowledge and self-development. It's really about like digging in deep and understanding who you truly are, what you really want, and this innate value that you have to bring to the world. And that's one of the things that always gives me goosebumps. And it feels so fulfilling when I hear stories like yours because I know you're doing the work that you feel called to do in the world and you're showing up as yourself in the ways that you want to be perceived. We still can protect the things we don't want to be public. That's totally normal. Just because you have a personal brand doesn't mean that you're sharing everything. But man, if more of us show up as we're meant to be, our whole selves, that's how things change. And I see it happening. I see so many, especially women clients coming into my life who are at this point where they're like, you know what? I'm sick of screwing around.
Mm-hmm.
It's time. It's time to do
Yeah.
this.
I mean, for me, it was the pandemic, it was like that whole come to Jesus moment of like, what are you doing? If you're not going to do this, like now's the time, seize it. And so it was just perfect timing for me as well to just, okay, I finished it. Now it's time to get out there. I was so afraid of the next part that I kept revising. I was so afraid of what came next because I didn't know how to do that and what it looked like. And I was like, well, she might know. She might have some ideas. Let's just try it. So I did. And like each piece, like, you build it like one little sentence at a time. The blurb, the positioning statement, the elevator pitch. And then those things, it's, started to create this, all these little droplets come together and you're going downstream before you know it. And it's doable. It's totally doable. You just have to take that, that leap of faith and be like, okay, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try.
And you did so much hard work to get to
Yeah.
this. So what would you say to someone who was kind of at the point where you were at? Maybe they have a book that's pretty much ready to go and it's or maybe they're not quite there yet, but they're almost there. What would you say to that person to, like, I guess, what advice?
Well, I signed up for this class and it was great. I got all the things I needed from this class, and now I got a book deal, and we're all here because we have that dream, that shared dream. And, it gave me the assets, but also the confidence and the gestation period too. I had that 6 months of gestation of like, I'm going to be going out into the world with this, and I'm going to be like a spokesperson for this now. Like, it's a kind of a shifting gears. And like, I have the thing, it's written, I want to get it out in the world, but then I know that another part of being an author is you're going out and you're doing like speaking things, and you're selling your book, you're doing book signings, and you're doing podcasts. Like, you have to have language and a script. You need a script, right? Because I was not born knowing how to be, an author going out in the world and being on stage. You're going to go on stage now and perform the thing. It's very much like doing a play. My kids are in theater and they work. And then there's dress rehearsal, which is what this class is, kind of the dress rehearsal of getting all the things and the script. And then you go out and you perform it. I'm lucky because I'm an extrovert. So it's not as terrifying to me as like somebody, a lot of writers are introverts, and it seems very terrifying, but it's less terrifying with the script than just going out there like cold and not knowing, how to like work these little plugs in.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So where can folks find you to learn more about your book and you and your river trips and everything?
Bridget
And I have it ready.
Yes, all the things are there. I'm a good student. I put all the pieces there.
Yes, look at this awesome website.
Thank you.
You can sign up for her email list.
Yeah, no. And then the events and journeys, that's where the women's empowerment writing and Ayurveda workshops are. And here's our first one, Reflections with Water. It's in early July on the Salmon River, which is the river of no return. It goes through the largest wilderness area in the lower 48 states. And then we also we're working on putting together a Costa Rica adventure and one on the Kern River. So those are coming. So if you want info on those two, just send me your email. And then you'll be on the list, and I'll be able to let you know some things that are coming with the book. It's supposed to come out. It's right now. It's scheduled to drop the book in spring of 2025. It takes out. That's the other thing. To say, what do you say to the person, who was where I was before? Look, I won the fast track. Things happened. Boom, boom, like I sent it out May. I had an agent by July. It couldn't have gone faster. I had sold the book. They made an offer October, right? It's still, and the book's done. It's still coming out in 2025, spring of 2025. So it is 2 full years from when I sent it out, and I'm on the fast track. So get out there, people, like do it. You don't have time to fool around. It takes a long time, even when you're on the fast track.
Absolutely. That's such a good reminder, even to myself. And look at you during that time period. You're working on another book, but you're also working on building this audience and these connections, genuine connections with people who are your people, who are going to want to buy this book and the next book and all of that too. And I think that's really beautiful, because it isn't writing just, I think for most authors, it's not just about the book. It's about that human experience and connecting with a reader. It's like creating that moment we've all had with a book where we're like, oh my God, this is so good. We want to create that for other people, and that's real connection.
Right, like personal connection, also connection with your audience. But it's also like, with the brand, if you can think about the brand, it's like what you represent. People identify with you because you represent, and that's what you get to define. You don't have to, when you take charge from the beginning with your brand, I get to represent and be affiliated now with resilience and healing on the river. Like when you see me or see my book or see anything about me, that's the message. And I
Yeah.
love that. I love that. I have control over that. And that's who I am. That's who I'm coming into the world as. I have confidence doing that and connecting with people on that level. I'm connecting, like now I'm going out, I'm sending just personal, I'm forwarding like I did with you, like, oh, look at Publishers Marketplace. I wanted to share this news with you. I'm so excited. And then everybody responds with like, oh, that's amazing. Like, I want to review it for this or that magazine that I write for. I want you to come on my podcast. Like I'm already starting to make those connections so that when it's time, I'd be like, okay, when's a good date? I'm starting to seed that out, but in a natural way. It's not like this gross thing where I'm like slapping this whole like slick PR thing on them that I had somebody write up for me. That's icky that we all get, like, I get those all the time for people. And I'm like, oh God, delete. But no, it's an authentic relationship where it's, like I sent it to somebody that I love, who I grew up with, who runs a writer's workshop in my hometown. And he's like, oh, we got to get you on the faculty here. And I'm like, oh, that'd be amazing. So things like those sorts of dreams are happening too, but it's all, and you have language. I have language, like, oh, send us your bio. Boom. Like I have all of those pieces and the building of the connection and the really like intrinsic knowledge, core knowledge of what I'm representing and how I'm going out in the world and what I'm being associated with.
Mm. Wow, you said that so well. I love that so much. I think that's one of the big gifts, I think, that a lot of times, especially with women writers, we have a lot of imposter syndrome. And it's like especially for the ones who are not extroverts, there's a real reticence to be in the spotlight. And I think that's why a lot of writers are like, oh, brand, I don't know, that feels icky. But in reality, it's like when you're creating this brand, like you just said, it's about so much more than you. It's about these ideas that you just talked about, resilience, the river, and when you have that, that's what you're bringing to the world. It enables you to kind of put yourself aside, put that ego part aside and be like, no, this is more important than just me or you. This is important for all of us.
Yes. And when I gave the book to my husband to read for the first time, I've been working on this thing, forever. And I'm like, okay, I'm sending it out. Like, you should read it so you have an idea of like what's going out there. And he was like, how many more sex scenes are in this book? I can't. Like, there's so many sex scenes, and I'm like, okay, well, just skip ahead to page 130. That's where the whitewater starts. That's where it takes off. Then at the end of the book, he looked at me and he's like, "This is bigger than us. What this is and what it represents and what it's going to do in the world is so much bigger than us. You're asking me like what I think. It doesn't matter. This story and what you've done, what this message is so much bigger than, it doesn't matter what we think."
Wow.
So and that feels good to not let my fear and my ego sit on that, right? Like, oh, I'm scared that I'm going to look bad and my family's going to hate me and they're going to look bad and everybody's going to look bad. And so I don't put that out. Like, that's kind of, being disrespectful to the creator, I think. Like, that was a story I was given. Did would I sign up for that again? Probably not. Like, it's not a story I want to tell necessarily, but it's a story I was given, and I got to do the best I can with that story and to honor it and to honor, my family and what we've overcome. And to be proud of that. I don't want to live in the shame and the guilt. I want to be proud of our efforts and share that story with people. And I know it's going to help people. I mean, bottom line, I know it's going to help other people to realize that you can overcome a lot of adversity and have a happy life and be connected and, still be contributing, still be somebody who's overcome and provides hope and to inspire. And that's what you're doing. That's what everybody here wants to be able to bring hope, because these are dark times.
They are dark times. Absolutely.
But if we're all bringing our hope, then they don't have to be as dark.
Yes, I love that so much. Oh, thank you so much for being willing to take the time to share all of this with me and
Oh my
with the
gosh,
folks who are going to
my
watch this.
pleasure.
Yeah.
My
And
pleasure.
I'm so excited for this book to come out and participate in one of these river trips, whichever one, and hopefully many. But say your website one more time for everybody.
BridgetCrocker.com. That's my name. And my book's called The River's Daughter.
And what's your handle on Instagram too?
Bridget Crocker everywhere. Just my name
Awesome.
everywhere. Yep.
Perfect. All right. Well,
Thank you.
thank you again.
Oh my
I'm gonna,
gosh. I'm so glad that I get to share this. It's so exciting it feels really good. It feels so good to have, I'm running these women's empowerment workshops, right? To step into my power as an author feels so good.